I'm Jimmy Lewis.
I'm Trevor Hunter.
We're with Dirt Bike Test, and today we're talking about the 2022 Honda CRF250R. It's pretty much an all-new bike. We kind of saw this coming because we saw the 450 last year, and now they took basically last year's engine, made it a single port exhaust, did some tuning on it to boost up the bottom end, and they're hoping that they have solved all the problems of the world with this motorcycle. So what did you think? So let's talk about the power.
I think they came close to solving all the problems of the world. It's definitely a noticeable improvement. From the bottom to mid especially, that's where that Honda lacked in previous years compared to the competition. But the top end was always really solid. So that bottom to mid, where honestly where a lot of people ride, if you're not a super high-end rider, it's hard to keep it up in the revs where you need it to be.
Yeah, they're claiming like 20% more. And I mean, like right off the bat, you feel the way that it pulls. They did some work with the transmission ratios, and in combination with that, it really is way more drivable. The other one, you had to make sure you made your downshifts, or you really had to be working the clutch, and this bike, it doesn't seem to care too much. There's 3 ignition modes with the power. Stock is pretty good. For me, I was happy with stock. 2, the less aggressive map. I didn't like it so much, but then again, I'm quite a bit heavier. I'm literally 200 pounds and too big for a 250F in reality, but I still enjoy riding them and have fun. But map 3, the aggressive map for 3, literally allowed me to use either or, a gear and a turn. I could go around the turn, second revving it, or third torquing it. And on the old motor, it would have been impossible for me to pull out of those turns in third. And then, like Trevor was saying, the top end has always been good, and I don't think it's changed all that much. Maybe it doesn't feel as gnarly as it did last year because the bottom and the mid are kind of filling it in, so you don't really notice the surge, but it is up there. And the one thing about this bike is I like the way that it works its way up into Overrip. It really does tell you, hey, you're getting to the you've passed peak power here. You know, it's kind of got a light sign off, and yeah, just overall a really solid engine package, and definitely fixing it. And I'm pretty sure the question everybody has is like, well, is it better than the Yamaha? And this is a tough one because the Yamaha is so good and strong on the bottom, and you'd have to ride them back to back to see. But it comes down to like where regular guys ride, and it's more where Honda is focused on making this motor better. So for those guys, I think the motor is a substantial improvement, and they'll be really kind of happy with it.
Yeah, I tend to agree with all that. For me, I'm a little lighter than Jimmy. I'm like 160, so I'm kind of close to the 250F range. And I was bouncing back and forth between maps 1 and 3, so like the stock and then the aggressive. But the more I rode the bike, the more I tended to gravitate towards the map 3, the aggressive one. And just you could rev it out. It's almost easier to ride just because you get a little bit more power, a little more aggressive. And it's really fun to ride when you're really revving it out and letting it sing.
Yeah, so heavy guys like it, light guys like it. I think overall a really good package. And then the next big thing, and really probably the biggest thing, the engine was where the most improvement was to be had. But the chassis, which is we're familiar with from the 450, is all new. It's definitely lighter. I mean, the bike has lost 8 pounds, and you feel it when you're riding it. You notice this. But the handling seems to have become a lot more lively, where to me, the older bike, and it was more on the 450, because 250s seemed to get away with a lot of stuff on the chassis. But the old one, the bikes felt longer and more stable and harder, harder to turn. To me, it just felt like it didn't want to bend into turns, and it was always a good turner, but never like, well, the problem is the new one is that much better. It's very lively, very consistent. The wheels feel like they're tracking. It almost feels like the rear end is just hooked up, way better. And I didn't really deviate a whole lot from the suspension settings. We got the sag at 105, which we were able to do with the stock spring, and then I was playing around by adding a little bit of compression and then coming back, and it was pretty spot on.
Yeah, and for me, I tend to like a little more stable of a bike. To me, cornering isn't my top priority, I guess you'd say. I go for stability. So with this less stable chassis, as you'd say, I ran a little bit more sag, like 107, 108 area, to get that little extra stability and keep that rear end a little lower coming into corners. And then we just went a 1/6 of a turn stiffer on high-speed compression in the shock, and I felt right at home the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, so you're letting it come lower with the spring, but then
Yep.
kind of being able to bring it back up. And
Yep.
I played around, I actually rode with his setting, which means I was really low in the stroke, and it didn't really upset the bike a bunch, and that's kind of the sign of a good chassis, that it can kind of get away with a little bit here or there. I didn't think, I think the forks, the Showa forks, kind of have the same plushness that we talked about on the 450. It's not typical Showa to be that kind of consistent, the initial being soft, but still having that really good Showa bottoming. And believe me, I bottomed stuff up. Yeah, big guy, short, coming up short, and I tripled the doubles. You know what I mean? So there was that, and just like you talk about, just as being the bike being kind of a package. We said, hey, well, where's the hydraulic clutch? Well, I don't think it needs one.
I don't either.
It didn't have anything funky there. The clutch shifting was really good. Another new thing is the Pirelli tires. At the track we're at today, it is kind of a hard pack track with a lot of wood chips and stuff mixed into it, and so it's not something that we're super familiar with. So it's going to take some time on tracks we're familiar with. But I tell you what, all day long, and I like these tires. I've liked these tires in the past. And so there was times when I thought that if I was on a Dunlop, I don't know if I would have felt that comfortable. But again, I'm familiar with these tires, and I like them, so that's a big change. But then if you don't like them, it's easy to put on something a little bit different. But I don't see it as being a problem. I think it might actually have helped the bump compliance quite a bit.
Yeah, I've never really ridden with Pirellis, but I was a big fan. One thing is they were running like 14 PSI in the front and 13 in the rear. And for me, I felt like under acceleration and leaning the bike over, the rear tire was rolling over a little bit. So I just bumped it up to 14 PSI, which is like normal recommended air pressure. And that fixed all of that, and it's still hooked up good. It's a little stiffer in the rear, but to me, I liked it better.
Yeah, and you're the only guy that managed to get a flat tire too. Desert donkey. So anyways, I'm trying to think if there's anything else we need to touch on. Overall, pretty good. Like, if you have any questions or comments or concerns, go ahead and leave those in the comments section, wherever the heck that is. Is it over here, over there? He's just email Trevor and he'll source the answer for you. I think that's about it. Any other final thoughts on that?
No, I think I rode a Honda 250F right before coming out here, and to me, it's an improvement for sure. So I'm happy with it.
A couple weeks back, got to ride the new Cowie 250F, and same thing. I'm like, you can tell everybody's kind of searching for this perfect power package, this extra power, and everything that Honda described in their brochures and stuff. They said they improved the bike. They improved the bike. It wasn't. It's not false advertising or marketing. It seems like they've done a really good job, and I think for the real guys that are really buying bikes, they've made the right improvements, and people will be stoked on it.
I agree.